saw it on his face and I saw it in his eyes, and I know they're real. I think it would be great if he was still alive to see the popularity of the Bigfoot culture.
In the icy wilderness of Alaska lies the haunting ghost town of Portlock, a place cloaked in mystery, fear, and an enduring legend. This isolated village has been abandoned, not once, but 4 times, each departure marked by tales of death, disappearances, and encounters with a terrifying creature that defies explanation. What secrets does Portlock hide? Let's uncover the chilling tale of this cursed land and its infamous resident, the Nantiinaq.
Portlock was cursed and Bigfoot's place and nobody goes there.
Overnight, everybody.
A promising land turned sinister. Portlock, named after British Captain Nathaniel Portlock, seemed like the perfect location for a thriving settlement. Its remote coastal location was rich with resources, abundant fish, fertile land, and game. But beneath this abundance lurked an ominous secret. When Captain Portlock's crew arrived in 1785, they discovered an abandoned native village. The eerie silence unsettled them. Why would anyone leave such a bountiful place? Soon, their own settlement attempt ended in disaster. The crew was struck by a mysterious sickness that spread quickly, leaving many even unable to move. Adding to their terror were strange, unearthly cries emanating from the dense forest at night. These sounds seemed to move closer with each passing evening, as if something unseen was stalking them.
You know, the stories of Nantiinaq or Bigfoot out here, and we're gonna really have to watch our back.
Man, this place is creepy. It's right next to no man's land, too.
The men's unease grew into outright panic, as an unexplainable sense of dread permeated their camp. Despite their best efforts to rationalize the events, the eerie atmosphere was inescapable. Crew members began to speak in hushed whispers about malevolent spirits or creatures that might inhabit the land. Portlock, faced with the rising hysteria among his men, attempted to maintain order but found his authority waning. Their fears seemed to magnify in the oppressive silence of the wilderness, where even the abundant natural beauty could not ease their growing paranoia. The breaking point came when some of the men claimed to see shadowy figures moving just beyond the tree line. These fleeting glimpses of something or someone unnatural convinced the crew that they were not alone. They begged Captain Portlock to abandon the settlement. Reluctantly, he agreed, ordering a retreat and leaving behind what could have been a prosperous venture. Little did they know that this dark chapter was only the beginning of Portlock's sinister legacy. The land's darkness would claim its next victim soon enough, as the promise of abundant resources continued to lure new settlers, each of whom would face their own encounters with the inexplicable. The Sugpiaq's encounter with cannibal giants. In 1867, the Sugpiaq people, a nomadic indigenous community, saw Portlock as a land of promise. Drawn by its abundant resources, they believed the region could provide the stability they sought. However, their optimism was short-lived.
Feelings that I've been feeling since we got here. Just can't shake it. But I do believe in a higher power, and my faith is a big part of me.
As they established their settlement, they began to experience terror unlike anything they had known. The attacks started subtly. Livestock went missing. Their remains later discovered in gruesome conditions, suggesting something far more sinister than a typical predator. Soon, the Sugpiaq themselves became targets. Survivors described their attackers as the Nantiinaq, massive, half-human, half-beast figures that seemed to emerge from the forest without warning. These cannibal giants were relentless, their raids growing bolder with each passing week. Despite the Sugpiaq's efforts to defend themselves, they found themselves outmatched. The Nantiinaq were not only physically imposing, but also displayed an unsettling cunning. They struck at night, using the dense forest to their advantage. The Sugpiaq's weapons, crafted for hunting and basic defense, proved inadequate against the sheer power of these creatures. Villagers spoke of witnessing their comrades dragged into the darkness, their screams echoing through the trees before being silenced. The psychological toll was immense. Fear gripped the community, and a sense of hopelessness began to take root. The Sugpiaq elders attempted to make sense of the attacks, attributing them to malevolent spirits or supernatural forces angered by their presence. Rituals were performed to ward off the Nantiinaq, but the attacks continued unabated. It became clear that staying in Portlock meant certain death. Ultimately, the Sugpiaq had no choice but to abandon their settlement. They left behind not only their homes, but also their dreams of a stable future. Stories of their encounters with the Nantiinaq were passed down through generations, serving as a chilling warning to others who might consider settling in the area. These tales spoke of towering beasts with glowing eyes, creatures that seemed to materialize from the shadows and vanish just as quickly. For the Sugpiaq, Portlock became synonymous with terror, a place where human courage and resilience were no match for the unknown. Their departure marked yet another chapter in the dark and mysterious history of this haunted land. A modern community faces ancient fears. By the 1920s, another group arrived, determined to succeed where others had failed. They built modern amenities, a cannery, school, and post office. This new settlement thrived under strict rules designed to avoid provoking the forest's mysterious inhabitants. Nighttime curfews were enforced, armed guards patrolled the area, and no one ventured into the fog-laden woods. For nearly a decade, it worked. But complacency crept in, and tragedy soon followed. The first chilling incident was the death of Andrew Camlock in 1931. A skilled logger, Camlock ventured deeper into the forest than anyone before him. When he didn't return, searchers found his body in a horrific state. His head was crushed by his own logging sled, flung far from his remains. Nearby, his dogs lay torn apart, their remains scattered. The sheer force and brutality of the scene were beyond human explanation. Camlock's death marked a turning point for the community. It reignited old fears, and whispers of the Nantiinaq began circulating again. Residents reported hearing strange cries echoing through the forest at night, sounds that no known animal could produce. Shadows flitted among the trees, and some claimed to see glowing eyes watching them from the darkness. Despite these unsettling events, the community tried to maintain a sense of normalcy. They increased the frequency of armed patrols and reinforced curfews. However, the sense of security they had built over the years was slowly unraveling. Hunters and loggers started disappearing without a trace. Those who ventured into the woods often returned shaken, unwilling to speak of what they had experienced. In one particularly chilling incident, a group of workers came across massive footprints in the mud, measuring over 18 inches long. The tracks led deep into the forest, but disappeared abruptly, as if whatever had made them had taken to the trees or vanished into thin air. These findings further fueled the growing hysteria. As the years went on, the community's vigilance waned under the strain of constant fear. Families began to leave, seeking refuge in safer, more hospitable areas. By the late 1930s, the once thriving settlement was a shadow of its former self, its streets eerily quiet, and its buildings slowly succumbing to nature. The dream of taming Portlock's wilderness had turned into a nightmare, and the land's dark legend remained as potent as ever. The Nantiinaq reveals itself. As fear spread, reports of a massive, hairy creature began to surface. One resident, Tom Olson, claimed to have seen it on the beach. Armed with a rifle, he froze in terror, unable to shoot. The creature's presence became undeniable as hunters and loggers started disappearing. When bodies were found, they bore deep claw marks and signs of violent attacks. Skeptics attributed these injuries to bears, but the residents' fear was unshakable. The Nantiinaq was real, and it was hunting them. The sheer size of the creature, as described by witnesses, was unlike anything they had encountered. Standing at an estimated 8 to 10 feet tall, the Nantiinaq was covered in dark, matted hair. Its eyes were said to glow with an unnatural red hue, piercing through the thick forest darkness. Its movements were swift and eerily silent for such a large being, adding to the fear and mystique surrounding it. Residents began to notice patterns in its behavior. The Nantiinaq seemed to be most active at dusk and dawn, times when the village was transitioning between activities. It preyed on those who strayed too far from the safety of their homes, often targeting individuals who ventured into the woods alone. This calculated approach led many to believe that the creature was not just a wild animal, but something far more intelligent. One particularly terrifying account involved a group of hunters who had set up camp near the edge of the forest. During the night, they were awakened by guttural growls and heavy footsteps circling their camp. As the men scrambled for their rifles, they realized the sounds were coming from multiple directions, suggesting the creature or creatures were coordinating their movements. When morning came, the men abandoned their hunt and fled back to the village, vowing never to return to the forest. The attacks grew bolder over time. Livestock were found mutilated, their carcasses bearing deep gashes that no known predator could inflict. Some animals appeared to have been thrown significant distances, their remains discovered far from the initial attack sites. These displays of strength further cemented the Nantiinaq's fearsome reputation. Amid the rising panic, some villagers reported hearing strange vocalizations at night, low, mournful howls that seemed to echo through the trees. These sounds were unlike anything they had heard before and were often accompanied by an overwhelming feeling of dread. Elders in the community began to speak of the creature as a vengeful spirit, angered by the encroachment of humans into its territory. The final straw came when a logging crew went missing without a trace. Their tools and equipment were found abandoned at their worksite, but there was no sign of the men. The incident prompted the remaining villagers to abandon Portlock en masse, leaving behind their homes, businesses, and belongings. The once thriving settlement became a ghost town, its streets silent but for the whispers of its dark history. Even today, the legend of the Nantiinaq endures, a chilling reminder of the mysterious and untamed wilderness that surrounds Portlock. For those who dare to visit, the warnings remain clear. Tread carefully, for something still watches from the shadows. The 1950 Exodus, a town abandoned overnight. By 1950, Portlock's remaining residents could no longer endure the escalating terror. Up to 36 people had vanished, their mutilated bodies occasionally discovered in gruesome conditions. The fear reached a fever pitch when the town's post office worker, the last to leave, reported hearing heavy, two-legged footsteps outside his barricaded door at night. He fled, leaving the town utterly deserted. Portlock became a ghost town, its buildings left to decay, its streets overtaken by nature. The sudden and complete abandonment left behind an eerie, frozen moment in time. What made this exodus so unsettling was the speed and urgency with which it occurred. Families left behind personal belongings, meals uneaten on tables, and tools lying where they had been dropped mid-use. It was as if the residents had fled in the middle of their daily routines, driven out by an overwhelming immediate threat. This abrupt departure only added to the mystique surrounding the town. Rumors spread quickly among those who lived in nearby villages. Stories of mutilated bodies and the haunting presence of the Nantiinaq reached surrounding communities, fueling their own fears of the creature. Some believed the residents of Portlock had been cursed, their town doomed from the start. Others whispered that the Nantiinaq had grown bolder, its territorial wrath extending beyond the dense forests and into the village itself. Even years later, occasional visitors to the ghost town reported strange occurrences. Some claimed to hear distant guttural growls echoing through the trees, while others spoke of finding large human-like footprints in the overgrown streets. A few dared to camp in the area, but left abruptly after experiencing an unshakable feeling of being watched. These stories, though anecdotal, kept the legend alive, ensuring that Portlock remained a place of mystery and fear. Interestingly, the post office worker who was the last to leave shared chilling details about his final days in Portlock. In interviews, he described nights filled with relentless noises, heavy footsteps, guttural sounds, and the unnerving sensation of something just outside his door. He barricaded himself inside, surviving on rations until he finally decided to leave. He later admitted that he felt fortunate to have escaped alive. The abandonment of Portlock marked the end of its human habitation, but the beginning of its infamy. The ghost town's decaying buildings and untamed streets stand as silent witnesses to the terror that drove its people away. For many, Portlock is a cautionary tale about the dangers of encroaching on nature and the mysteries that lie hidden within the wilderness. Post-abandonment encounters, the legend grows. Even after its desertion, Portlock continued to terrify. In the 1970s, 3 hunters sought refuge in the abandoned village during a storm. That night, they experienced unexplainable events. Something circled their camp, growling and making guttural sounds. The creature's movement suggested it walked on 2 legs, and the hunters left the area as soon as the storm passed. Years later, oversized, human-like footprints measuring over 18 inches were discovered near the area, reinforcing the Nantiinaq legend. Could these footprints belong to the same creature that terrorized the town decades earlier? The ghost town also became a magnet for cryptozoologists and paranormal enthusiasts, drawn by the chance to explore its mysteries. Some visitors reported eerie encounters similar to the hunter's experiences. Accounts of guttural growls, snapping branches, and the sense of being watched began to accumulate. Even seasoned adventurers admitted that the atmosphere in Portlock felt heavy, as though the land itself retained the fear and tragedy of its past. In one particularly chilling story, a group of researchers equipped with modern tracking equipment set up camp in the area. They hoped to gather evidence of the Nantiinaq, but instead found themselves fleeing after their equipment unexplainably malfunctioned. Cameras shut down, audio devices picked up strange static, and their attempts to document the area were thwarted by an unseen force. One researcher claimed to hear footsteps approaching their tent in the dead of night, only to find nothing when he stepped outside. These modern tales, combined with the historical accounts, have cemented Portlock's reputation as one of Alaska's most haunted locations. The question of what truly haunts the abandoned village, whether a physical creature, a spiritual entity, or the lingering shadows of human fear, remains unanswered. For many, Portlock is a reminder of the thin boundary between the natural and the supernatural, a place where the past refuses to stay buried. Theories and skepticism. What lurks in Portlock? The events at Portlock have inspired numerous theories, from the plausible to the paranormal. Some attribute the disappearances and mutilations to Alaska's brown bears, known for their strength and aggression. These apex predators are certainly capable of inflicting severe injuries, and their territorial nature could explain the attacks on livestock and humans. Yet, skeptics of the bear theory point out that bears rarely exhibit the calculated behavior described in many accounts. For example, the precise mutilations, scattered remains, and the apparent targeting of individuals are inconsistent with typical bear attacks. Another explanation revolves around infrasound, low-frequency vibrations produced by natural phenomena such as wind, earthquakes, or even certain animals like whales. Infrasound is known to cause disorientation, nausea, and a profound sense of dread in humans, potentially explaining the feelings of terror reported by Portlock's inhabitants. However, while infrasound could account for the psychological distress, it falls short of explaining the physical evidence, the massive footprints, uprooted trees, and the brutalized bodies. Could the Nantiinaq be an undiscovered species? Cryptozoologists suggest it may represent a relic population of archaic humans or an unknown primate species. The detailed descriptions of the creature's towering stature, hair-covered body, and glowing eyes align with other cryptid legends, such as Bigfoot or the Yeti. Adding to this theory are physical findings like oversized, human-like footprints and clusters of trees driven into the ground upside down, an act that would require incredible strength. These phenomena, while fascinating, remain difficult to attribute to any known animal or natural force. Believers argue that the Nantiinaq's intelligence sets it apart from mere predators. Stories of its ability to outmaneuver armed patrols, avoid traps, and launch coordinated attacks suggest a creature capable of strategic thinking. This level of cunning has led some researchers to speculate that the Nantiinaq could be a highly evolved predator, one that has remained hidden in Alaska's vast wilderness. Critics, however, argue that many of these claims can be explained by natural events, human error, or exaggeration. The violent deaths could be the result of logging accidents or bear attacks, while the footprints might be an elaborate hoax. Additionally, the psychological toll of living in such an isolated, harsh environment might amplify fears and lead to the creation of myths to rationalize unexplainable occurrences. For local indigenous communities, the Nantiinaq is less a mystery and more a cultural reality. These communities have passed down stories of the creature for generations, viewing it as a guardian or a vengeful spirit of the land. This perspective adds a spiritual dimension to the legend, one that resonates deeply with those who respect the balance between humanity and nature. Ultimately, the mystery of what lurks in Portlock's shadowy forests endures, tantalizing researchers, cryptid enthusiasts, and skeptics alike. Whether the Nantiinaq is a flesh-and-blood creature, a product of environmental stress, or a manifestation of cultural mythology, it serves as a powerful reminder of the mysteries that still inhabit our world Portlock's legacy: fear, folklore, and exploration. The story of Portlock is more than a tale of terror. It's a reflection of humanity's relationship with the unknown. The Nantiinaq has become a symbol of the untamed wilderness, a reminder of nature's unpredictability and power. It challenges us to confront our fears and question our assumptions. Today, Portlock remains a site of fascination. Researchers armed with modern technology, such as drones and thermal imaging, continue to investigate. Adventurers and cryptid enthusiasts brave its eerie silence, hoping to uncover definitive evidence of the Nantiinaq's existence. But for now, Portlock's secrets remain buried in its dense forests and foggy coasts. This enduring allure of Portlock lies in its unique combination of history, folklore, and unexplained phenomena. For cryptozoologists, the town represents one of the most compelling cases in the field, a place where eyewitness accounts, physical evidence, and cultural narratives intersect. The oversized footprints and the accounts of mutilated animals provide tantalizing clues that fuel ongoing exploration. Despite these efforts, no conclusive proof of the Nantiinaq has been uncovered, adding to the town's mystique. The cultural significance of Portlock cannot be understated. Indigenous communities see the area not merely as a haunted location, but as a sacred land with deep spiritual connections. The stories of the Nantiinaq serve as cautionary tales, emphasizing the need for respect and harmony with the natural world. This perspective adds a layer of reverence to the investigations, reminding researchers that they are not merely seeking a cryptid, but stepping into a landscape suffused with meaning and memory. For thrill seekers, the ghost town offers an irresistible challenge. Portlock's decaying structures and overgrown paths evoke a sense of both dread and wonder. Many visitors report an overwhelming feeling of being watched, as if the forest itself holds its breath, waiting for intruders to leave. These personal experiences, while anecdotal, have only deepened the town's reputation as a place where the line between myth and reality blurs. As technology advances, researchers hope to uncover new insights into the mysteries of Portlock. Tools like motion-sensitive cameras, thermal imaging, and advanced audio recording devices offer the potential to capture evidence that might explain the legend. However, even if definitive proof remains elusive, Portlock's legacy will endure, a testament to humanity's enduring fascination with the unknown and our unyielding desire to explore the edges of our understanding. A haunting mystery. Portlock's tale is one of fear, resilience, and unanswered questions. What drove its people away? Was it a creature born of myth, a misunderstood predator, or something we can't yet explain? The truth may never be fully uncovered, but one thing is certain. Portlock, Alaska, will forever be a place where the line between reality and legend blurs. This haunting mystery continues to captivate all who hear its story. It reminds us that even in a world increasingly mapped and understood, there are still places where the unknown reigns supreme. The eerie silence of Portlock's abandoned streets, coupled with the dense forests that surround it, creates an atmosphere ripe for speculation and wonder. Each creak of an old structure or rustle of leaves in the wind feels like an echo of the past, as if the land itself whispers its secrets to those brave enough to listen. For those who dare to delve into its mystery, Portlock offers more than ghost stories. It provides a profound connection to the human experience of the unknown. Whether through the lens of science, spirituality, or sheer fascination, Portlock continues to inspire awe and caution, ensuring its legend will not soon be forgotten.